Ross Payton here with Role-Playing Public Radio, and this is episode 11, the Dungeon Crawl from Here to Eternity. Obviously, this is our tribute episode to the late, great Gary Gygax, and of course with me is Mr. Tom Church, who...
Gee, thanks for including me finally after about 15 seconds there, Ross.
Well, I was waiting for you to say something, Tom, but...
Well, I don't interrupt people when they talk.
Yeah, you do, Tom. You do it a lot, but...
They don't know that.
That's true, but we're not here to talk about your poor, your bad habits, your poor etiquette. We're here to talk about Mr. Gygax.
Very well.
He passed away on March 4th, and it's sort of, obviously, I was very saddened by his passing. His work obviously influenced me quite a bit.
Well, hell, if you're into gaming, you know his name at least.
Yeah. Well, actually, not some of my friends who are into gaming didn't, but...
what kind of friends are they then, Ross?
Not very good ones,
No,
I guess.
they're not.
Or just not very educated, not very schooled, I guess.
Oh, and the unwashed masses.
Yes. But when we're talking about Gygax, I mean, he created D&D along with Dave Arneson. And people don't recognize how much of an influence he's had on pop culture. I mean, it's not just Dungeons and Dragons.
Or his appearance on that episode of Futurama, either.
Right.
He's done more.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's that D&D provided the framework that so many other forms of storytelling, media, video games, and otherwise use today. It provided sort of a common framework that so many other geeks who went on to create movies, TV shows, whatever, have used.
You're referring to the group of heroes with limited resources who, nevertheless, through time accomplished massive things.
Yeah.
See, I'm educated, Ross.
Yeah,
I know.
there you go. The thing of it is, the whole model of the role-playing game, is something that has informed everyone since. I mean, like, you can't design a video game without picking up on some of this framework. Even if you never touch Dungeons and Dragons or anything else like that, the idea of interactive storytelling, of creating conflict and narrative at the same time through certain challenges is, you owe a lot to Gary. And look, even in video games today that have nothing to do with it. Grand Theft Auto, the latest ones, you had your character building up stats through action, basically getting experience points so they could shoot faster, drive better, that sort of thing. So
if he didn't just cheat right away to get it.
Right, yeah. And of course, Gary Gygax is known for creating the sort of philosophy of the old school, the dungeon crawl, the hack and slash, the battle of the wits between the players and the game masters and the game itself.
And a sheet of graph paper.
Yeah, the Tomb of Horrors, where death came quick and arbitrary, and only the cunning, the paranoid, and the ruthless and the strong survived.
And the rest died unmourned.
Yeah. And obviously this old school philosophy is still practiced today, but there are different models, different philosophies. But I feel that every form of gaming, role-playing gaming today, is based on that foundation, because we couldn't have had what we do have today, where it's just more collaborative, more based on storytelling, without that forming that foundation of the competition, the conflict between the GM and... Because even now, even in collaborative storytelling, the GM is expected to provide challenges and be basically open and honest.
And yet still I play games with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not as old school as, as Gary would have been. He, in the Tomb of Horrors, have you ever read that scenario?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the big bronze head, with the gaping mouth. You remember what's inside of that?
I'm a horrible person because I do not. Please, Ross, tell me what was in it.
A sphere of annihilation, and it was in a shadow, so you couldn't see the sphere of annihilation. And this was back in the very first edition, just D&D, so players didn't all know what a sphere of annihilation was. So if you reached inside the mouth of this head, you died. Period.
And were eradicated.
Yes. That was it. And people, of course, there's no clues, there's no warning. It just instant death.
Like there's not even any creepy music build up to it.
No. And
or people like popcorn going flying, don't open that, man.
Right. And people think, oh my God, that's terrible. That's just an awful game design decision. That'll just piss players off. That's not a bug. That's a feature. It was supposed to be like that. It was supposed to keep you on your toes. For one thing, if you actually did manage to get to the end of the, Tomb of Horrors and actually beat it, then that was a major victory. I mean, you had bragging rights. And
didn't get you laid, but you had bragging rights.
Right. And not everyone could do that. And of course today, modules are supposed to be more balanced in that sense. For example, like, it's very weird. The week he died, I was writing a 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons module for Goodman Games. I don't think I mentioned that before, but
you did. But you mentioned it every single time I was over here.
Well, I'm talking about on the show, Tom.
And I believe you mentioned it last show.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
By the way, he was working on a module for 4th Ed for Goodman Games.
Actually, I'm still working on it right now as of this show because it's in. I have to revise it now. I sent the rough draft in and I had to get it back and blah, blah,
They said,
blah.
well, you're like this, but this stuff really sucks. Fix that.
Pretty much. Because
how'd your ego take that?
Took it well because I'm still getting published, baby.
All right.
And I'm still trying to create that, trying to update that. I'm not trying to put an instant death in this scenario, but you still want to make it challenging. You still want to have hard, tough battles for the PCs to have to really struggle through. So when they win, they get a real sense of accomplishment. And I'm trying a lot of different things with it, but that sort of the core of that philosophy is still, I think, in most games. I mean, obviously the indie RPGs where it's all based on narrative are a different beast, but still there's still competition there. I mean, there's still that simple framework, and I don't know. I really wish we missed him at Gen Con. I saw him briefly. And I wish I had waited in line to talk to him, and I really regret that I never got a chance to shake his hands.
We were both there. I mean, I didn't even realize he was there until like the day before the last day.
Yeah, I mean, I asked a few questions on the Ian World message boards of him, but I never.
Well, he was trying to keep his visit kind of low key. I don't remember.
No, he was promoting a new book.
Oh, okay. Well,
so
I'm an idiot.
I was stupid. I thought, I'm still young enough that I think everybody's gonna. I don't think about people, passing away, and so I just I'll see him next year, and that's gonna be a regret I'm gonna have.
I got some friends who are like that with Robert Jordan.
Robert Jordan. Oh yeah, Wheel of Time. Yeah, that's. I mean, you never know how much you miss. How valuable someone is until they're gone. I mean, even just an icon. Because, if you read through his old material, I mean, he's, not a perfect. He had very sort of antiquated notions in some ways. I mean, his random prostitute table, in the first edition DM guide, where it was like a strumpet or a trollop.
Harlot with his heart of gold, or
no, just they just had the one word. Yeah, just it was sort of like a thesaurus with the numbers on it, and. But I mean that's just part of the old school philosophy where things don't make sense. It's all about the fun. It's all about challenging, grabbing you by the short hairs, and seeing if you
and daring you to survive.
Yeah, exactly. It was a different philosophy, and I can see the sort of generational conflict between like indie game designers and the newer generations, where they say the older ones, the old school people, the grognards, say that's an actual term, by the way. That is grognard comes from the Napoleonic era, where it referred to the grumblers, the old gray bearded veterans who grumbled about everything. And wargamers picked it up to describe a certain type of wargamer who had a beard and was old and grumbled about everything. And that sort of carried on to role-playing games. So the old school players who all are old, gray-haired and have beards, they're referred to as grognards.
Well, Ross, you have dropped some knowledge on my head.
Yes, and hopefully you, the audience. But anyways, the grognards, of course, obviously look at us, younger generation, as the whippersnappers who were spoiled by video games.
Totally impatient.
Yes, and we don't want a real challenge. If we die, we want to reboot. We want to reload the last save games. We don't want death to be permanent.
And we want cheat codes.
Cheat codes. We make it too easy. And
well, a lot of that is true, actually, but...
I mean, on the other hand, you also read some of these old school gamers, like the AB3 stories. They were all very much, the old school philosophies. Thumbs of Death, our last AB3 skit that we did. That PCs die in horrible deaths for no good reason.
And by the way, I do acknowledge mentioning that my Fonzie sucks pretty bad.
That was kind of the point, Tom.
Okay, well, as long as that was the point,
I think that enhanced it.
Honestly, it kept me up at least one night, just thinking, my God, I've insulted the Fonz.
Well, now the whole internet knows how horrible your impression is, and it's going to be on the internet forever, Tom. Even if I deleted it, it would still be out there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So,
but I am immortal now.
Yes. Yes.
Infamous, but yet immortal.
But anyways, it's interesting to see this generational conflict. And the thing is, the kids, though, our younger generations, we still have that sense of conflict, that sense of, fighting and dying and just battling against an unfair world and stacked odds and all this other stuff. And I think that's the sort of the true spirit of Mr. Gygax's work, is to create that sense of victory despite all odds, the real, the heroic myth where the hero is faced with impossible odds, yet he still prevails somehow. And I think that's the sort, he was trying one way of doing it. Now that we saw the strengths and weaknesses of his techniques, the newer generations, the newer approaches to gaming, like the collaborative, can use different ways to achieve that same effect, that emotional effect. So, I mean,
things do get emotional when we game over here.
Yeah, or anyway, in most games, I can't, a lot of the stories we've read here, a lot of the other anecdotes, people do take these seriously. I mean, not seriously, but they really get into it. Like any other hobby that you can really invest your energies into. So,
yeah, I haven't had too many games where it's, people just kind of waiting around, smoking, waiting for like, oh, is it our okay, I'll.
Yeah, people really get into it. They want their characters to win or die, or to, if they die,
often at the expense of anything else.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just I want to someday soon run an old school dungeon crawl and record it here and have you all die horrible deaths. I think it'll be fun. So, but.
Sphere of Annihilation, Ross.
Yes,
Sphere of Annihilation.
That's the greatest.
Except, well, then again, we have the option of the epic umbral blot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we have. Yeah, new and better rules. One of the things I've really enjoyed is crap. I forgot.
Good job, Ross.
It'll come back to me in a second, but
I can almost smell lean calories burning as Ross tries to remember this point.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop recording right now. Well, anyways, I just remembered one particular game that was very competitive, very old school. You weren't there, Tom, but I've told you about this before. It was AD&D, second edition, and it was held at this cyber cafe, this Power Games. Back in the late 90s.
The place where we went to go play the original Quake.
Yeah, that's where I learned how to play first-person shooters with a mouse. And that was, back.
I remember. I still refuse to do that.
Yeah, because you suck at this.
I did suck. I sucked very badly.
Yeah. And anyways,
it takes a big man to admit that.
There's us, high school friends, me, Chris, Josh, you, and then there were the people who ran it.
I do remember them.
Yeah, a couple of bearded guys, grog nerds, and at one point, like, you were a wuss and you went home or something. You didn't want to stay.
I stayed out playing computer games. I think.
Oh, you didn't want to play Ravenloft? You were there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyways, it was.
Yeah, I was there, but I was not in the game.
Okay, I'll take your word for it because I don't remember that well.
Way to go!
I know. No, I'm sure you were.
But yeah,
I don't remember.
I remember the people there, and they were. Very few people had opinions of high of themselves as these people did.
Anyways,
I remember that.
It was Ravenloft. 10 people, like 8 to 10 people. It was ridiculous. Big conference room table, one game master. There was a lot of alcohol on the table. I wasn't drinking, but a lot of the other people were.
Well,
they were drinking stuff called Sex on the Beach, which is like some sort of chocolate flavored liquor.
Good. Well, I hope so. Were you like 15 then?
Yeah, something like that. Anyways, a lot of alcohol on the table, and several of them were drinking. Also, the DM had a lot of house rules. He had like a whole yellow tablet full.
House rules.
Yeah, like most of them were related to martial arts, and most of the people were ignored them. However, I was like one of the few that took them. There was one path, like there are different schools or techniques you could pick. And I was the only one who I flipped to and was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. And then, like, at level 1, there's like a boxing or a fist fighting one that let you attack twice per round, one with each fist for 1d10 lethal damage. And this is AD&D. That's like a 7th level fighter with a great sword does 2 attacks around with 1d10 damage. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick that one. So I was like, and we were all elves. We were all elves who were on a ship. The ship sank. We all got shipwrecked. We all got on this island. So I was the elven Muhammad Ali. And I remember one of his other house rules was perception. He had a perception attribute, and we rolled a d20 to figure out what our perception was. I rolled a 20. I was the goddamn eagle-eyed elven Muhammad Ali.
All right, so
I was pretty dumb though. My character was pretty dumb. But I could
not
see
a sharp knife.
Not a sharp knife, but with tough hands and sharp eyes.
Zoolander from Zanzibar. All
yeah,
right.
exactly, something like that. And anyways,
I suck at those Don King little.
Yeah, things. You do. You don't even try again.
I'm sorry.
We were on this island, and it was Ravenloft, and it was spooky, and we
were vampires involved.
I don't remember. No, we were all level 1 characters. And we had no weapons or items because we were shipwrecked, obviously. We just washed up on the beach. And the thing is, on one half of the table were all the high school aged people, me, Chris,
Josh.
Josh, and I think Jared. And there's like 1 or 2 other people on our side. The other side of the table, the older ones, they were on the other side. And we basically were in 2 teams. And the older side, they got swords, and they found a couple swords on the beach. And so they were sort of taking over. And, no, there's 1 or 2 high school guys. Toby, he was on their side, and so we were basically 2 separate camps.
Well, Toby was kind of the hanger-on lackey guy for those guys, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a dick.
Yes, he was.
Anyways, so he was basically their little lackey, and we sort of did whatever they wanted because they had weapons, and I didn't want to challenge them all with even with my amazing fists of doom, and. We got into the forest. We got chased by wolves, and basically wound up. We found a couple things like a spell book. One of the players found a spell book, and he got color spray from it. And eventually, it basically turned into PC versus PC. And
so Lord of the Flies took over.
That's a great comparison. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, it was basically Lord of the Flies with elves in Ravenloft, and with a boxing elf. And the thing was, one of them somehow spontaneously developed psionic powers, and he developed an ability that held me paralyzed even while I was being attacked, which was way too powerful for a level 1 character. So basically, I was paralyzed, and they just shot me down with arrows and killed me. The color spray spell didn't work, didn't affect anyone, even though it should have stunned them for several rounds. But one of the players asked for divine intervention, got it because he rolled like a 77. He rolled like 100 on the D100 roll. I mean, just a ridiculous roll. But he became a level 3 cleric. But it still didn't matter. He got killed fairly quickly later. All the other players, though, they got killed, except for one who basically became evil and started getting Ravenloft mutations and became a deformed evil monster that was chased up a tree by wolves, and he died.
Kill the pig.
Everyone died. And all I remembered is my character. Basically what I've said. That's all I remember. And the game was like 4 hours. We played for like at least 4 hours. And because the GM, part of it was it got slower as the game went on because the DM got more and more drunk as the game went on. And that's not a good idea, especially with 8 players who are antagonists to each other in 2 different camps, and you're using a bunch of house rules, and a lot of the other players are getting drunk.
Wow.
But I still had fun because everyone died. And later on, the DM, when he looked at it, remembered what happened like the next day or something. He's like, you know what? Yeah, you guys should have won. Like the color spray should have knocked them all out. Then you could have just caved all their heads in. Or, basically admitted we would have killed their asses.
But my mind was interrupted by booze.
Basically. And so, everyone died, and we all had a fun time.
And I think I was still in the computer room playing Quake with my then friend Daniel, using stupid Predator skins because we loved them so much.
Yeah, I thought you were more of a Total Annihilation guy.
I liked that game okay, but Quake was really more my thing. Okay. Though actually, Command and Conquer Red Alert was just out then. I really love that one.
Okay, yeah, the old school video game.
Fucking
days.
Tesla coils.
Yes. One of the other things that Gygax really did was also popularize a lot of fantasy works to a whole generation, 2 generations of geeks, not just the people growing up in the 70s and 80s, but the ones today, and indirectly, but still. Because it's not just Tolkien. I mean, people think, oh, it's just Tolkien with the serial numbers followed up. It's not. I mean, there's like lots of Conan in that as well. Robert E. Howard. I'm sorry, but also several other fantasists. Lovecraft. That was a huge influence in D&D.
Dragonlance. That's the only one I remember from.
That came from D&D. I'm talking about influences.
I am so well. Excuse me, Ross. I am not as awesome as you.
Franz Lieber, the Farford and the Grey Mouser. What else?
Regrettably, I read more sci-fi than fantasy in my childhood.
Michael Moorcock, Elric, Stormbringer. Let's see here, Sprague de la Camp, a few others probably. But I mean, those authors, were introduced to all these young generations. Fantasy itself became, I think, more acceptable. I don't think we would have the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy if Dungeons and Dragons wasn't such a cultural force. Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have, everything from Xena Warrior Princess to Dragonlance, obviously Dragonlance, to many other works. So.
And I do owe his D&D game for actually making my first role-playing group have just a modicum of cool and unhip underground ability, because every member of my first group, all their families, mothers particularly, were hardcore Christians who thoroughly still believe that D&D was the devil's game.
Yep, along with Harry Potter and most of Western civilization, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, not 20th... Everything from 1950 on.
Yeah, in fact, one of my friends who was in my group,
Elvis.
I won't name his name, but when his mother found out that he was gaming with us, and she made him as punishment first have to memorize the 10 Commandments, and then forced him to watch this episode of the 700 Club where they talked about Dungeons and Dragons being corrupting youth.
Wow.
And he's now into really hardcore drugs.
Yeah, that...
and still games all the time.
Yeah, you can't really control your kids like that. The more you repress it, the more you.
Well, God, haven't they seen Carrie?
Yeah, the more you repress the teens, you make something forbidden, the more, tempting it becomes to them. So, anyways, yeah, it's a great... It's just a great game. I think we can all be agreed. But, I mean, it's become this major cultural force. And, people think, role-playing games are dying. The industry is doomed. Blah, blah. Pen and paper games are going to be phased out. Blah, blah, blah. They're going to change. I mean, they're always changing. They're obviously evolving. But I still think they're always going to be a niche. I think they're always going to be sort of the most innovative and the smallest. Like, if you look at the games overall as like the sort of series of circles, one growing bigger than the other, RPGs and board games are going to be like at the heart of it, like indie board games and RPGs. And then slightly outside of that you have card games, collectible card games, and hero clicks and things like that. And then out of that you have more mainstream board games, and then you have video games, and then you just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
I had a friend of mine say that, aren't you worried that your games are going to disappear with video games? Like, as good as video games get, there's just something in a tabletop RPG that just video games will never be able to replicate.
I mean, and to be honest, I don't think games should. I mean, games need a lot more setup in the fact you need several people at the same time at the same place, all willing to play. And that's, with a video game, you just plop the disc in. And so, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think games will always be around. RPGs will always be around, because I think people say, oh, the fan base is aging, blah, blah, blah. Well, whatever. I mean, there's still young people in gaming. I think people are still going to just find it. I think all game designers, all people who want to make video games are going to find this stuff. All the geeky guys who are going to become screenwriters for, the next Joss Whedon project or
God help you, the sci-fi original movies.
Yeah, they're all going to be playing D&D, or they'll have played it when they were growing up. It's an incubator for talent. It's an incubator for creativity. Because they're really, like in the interview we had last week with Sean Jaffe, did you?
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about how gaming taught him flexibility in storytelling and how that carries over to other fields. If you look, there are screenwriter blogs around when Mr. Gygax died, where John August, who big time screenwriter, just came out with a movie called The Nines. He said, "Oh, I grew up playing that when I was a kid, and obviously he moved on to other things, but that's still there." And I think that legacy, his footprint, is going to be on popular culture for the next century. I mean, it's sort of a subtle influence, but it's there if you know what to look for.
That's right. Mothers, let your kids play RPGs.
Yeah, I mean, hell, they could be. It's a lot better than doing drugs
or drinking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you should never drink an RPG at the same time.
No, well, it can be fun. It can be funny. That Ravenloft game got to be pretty funny. I remember that much. But yeah, just it's so Mr. Gygax, we salute you. We hope you are in the great beyond gaming for all of eternity, creating the greatest dungeons that will ever be. I hope whenever I die,
God sends them down to Satan for use in hell. Ideas.
Hell is the greatest dungeon of all. It's got to be. We got to crawl it. So.
I actually know I know a lot of sites and people and games that have stats for Satan.
Well, yeah, that's just without. I mean, duh. You had to do every work in mythology. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Of course, it's legitimate.
He's not really kidding though.
No, I'm kidding.
You say that, Ross.
No, I mean it. Anyways,
your eyes are shifty right now.
No, they aren't. Anyways. He's lies. So next up we have a promo from another RPG themed podcast, and then we'll have our shout outs for this special tribute episode of RPPR.
Stay tuned, bitches.
Back.
In a perfect world, wars are fought with miniatures, arguments are settled with dice, and life is all that stuff you do when you're not gaming. The world is not perfect. The Escapist Cast is the official podcast of theescapist.com and features discussions on role-playing advocacy, exploring the myths and misconceptions about tabletop RPG and LARP, improving public image and understanding of the hobby, and putting our passion for the game to good use towards improving the world around us. Discover the reality of fantasy games at theescapist.com/escapistcast.
And we're back.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking, folks. I don't have a letter this time because we're trying to do a tribute, and really all the letters I have right now mention titties and fuck and titty fuck a lot. So I didn't think that'd be good for a tribute.
Yeah, that's classy of you, Tom. Of course, you just mentioned those words now, so
that's true. I guess I might as well go for broke and just say motherfucker.
Well, I think Mr. Gygax, Gary.
Oh, he said those words too.
He would have appreciated the humor in it. He looked like Jerry Garcia. You could tell.
That's true.
Anyways, first shout out is for a roguelike, which is a type of video game pioneered back in the old days of Unix programming, where the dungeon was drawn with text symbols like hash marks, and your character is represented by an ampersand, and so on and so forth. Anyways, Dungeon Crawl is the roguelike that has tile graphics, actual graphics, so monsters look like monsters instead of snakes are not S's, they're snakes. Now, the other thing about roguelike games is that they're sadistically hard. I mean, if you thought the Tomb of Horrors was bad, these games are worse because In dungeon crawl, there are many ways to die. Die very quickly. And it's all randomized, so it's not really fair. It's very unfair. And if you die, your character is permanently dead. You've lost him forever. You cannot reload and go back to the last save. Your save is erased. Seriously, it's erased.
I know. I came in one time when you were just getting done with the game. There was sweat on your forehead.
Yeah.
You had I don't want to say a crazed look about you, but a bloodshot look about you.
Yeah, they're very frustrating because...
but I never saw you happier.
I've never beaten it yet, but in Dungeon Crawl, you have to go through 27 levels of a dungeon, including many sub-branches, so it's like 80 levels of dungeon crawling, all randomized to get the Orb of Zot, and then get to the top of the dungeon with it. And that's very, very hard to do. People do it on a regular basis, but only after years of playing and developing the paranoia and obsessiveness.
And megalomania.
To obsessive resource management, cowardice, and paranoia that is required to beat this game. Because if you think there's a threat, you're probably going to die. If there's 2 monsters at once, you're probably going to die. If there's 3 monsters at once, you're going to die unless you run away. You have to run away all the time. You have to have eyes in the back of your head. You have to imagine all kinds of threats. Did you know they actually have ghosts? Like when your character dies, he can have a ghost show up when another character plays. I've been killed by my own dead characters.
That is harsh.
That is very harsh. I was like, oh, Bobby's ghost. Oh, yeah.
Et tu, Bobby?
Yeah. Oh, Bobby, I guess you're kind of pissed I jumped in that pit of acid. Yeah, I didn't really think that through. I'm sorry. Oh, Bobby. Oh, Bob. Oh, now there's another ghost. Yeah. It's a great game, and it'll run on anything, and you should try it out. I've actually got a level 13 Necromancer that I'm working up. It's pretty fun.
Well, super D-duper.
Oh yeah, there's 27 races, 20 or 20 or 30 different races, 20 or 30 different classes. There's Nagas, Centaurs, all kinds of elves, orcs, demon spawn. Yeah, very, very fun.
But does it have rules for water evaporation?
Actually, in a sense, they do. You can throw, yeah, in a way, yeah. But
any veterans of our show will know what that was from.
Yes, Battle for North Africa. Anyways, Tom, you had one.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a cop out, but I don't do much D&D stuff. But I have bought recently the sequel to Neverwinter Nights 2, and it's and the expansion pack that came out for it, Mask of the Betrayer, and. I love the games, but Mask of the Betrayer in particularly I like because it's epic and you really do some epic things in it.
Gotcha.
Like, you actually journey to the Fugue Plane and have to free your own soul from the Wall of Judgment, and you meet Kelemvor, the god of death.
Okay.
And it's kind of nice. I mean, I know that the first Neverwinter Nights had its own epic expansion, but really the only epic thing you did was meet Mephistopheles and fight him. But
who cares about that?
That's an epic thing, but that's the only thing really epic in it. And the other one, there's all kinds of epic shit you do.
I see.
By the way, did I mention epic?
Yes.
So there's mine. I thought it was awesome.
Okay.
And I want you to get those judgmental eyes off of me, Ross.
Not. He lies about these things. Seriously though, my last shout out is to Diesel Boy, who is a drum and bass musician, which is basically insanely fast beats. It's techno music, but he put out an album a few years back called The Dungeon Master's Guide, which is actually it's drum and bass, very fast techno music. But strangely enough, it works really well as a D&D soundtrack. I mean, most people use either classical music or heavy metal, but
or in your case, the Conan soundtrack.
Yeah, which kind of exactly. But the Dungeon Master Guide works really well as a music for an action-paced game. You put it up during a boss fight or something, and players will really get into it. I've played the DMG several times.
Yes, you have, and they've worked the times you've used it.
Yeah, so that's our recommendations.
That's not Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week with another episode of RPPR. Tom, you already thought of the idea. What's the next episode's theme going to be?
I thought we might do something about running games in systems that all your players are intimately familiar with.
Okay.
And keeping it spicy then.
Okay.
Because if it's like Patrick. Remember, Patrick was when he used to play Call of Cthulhu with us. He knew the stats of every monster of the mythos.
Yeah, that's true. So how
And
do
it's
you
a
keep
challenge
it
to
fresh?
not. It's a challenge when you know all that information to not use it.
True. I know during the playtest of the Zeppelin scenario in Call of Cthulhu.
It was a star vampire.
Yeah, because I just invisible sucks blood out, sucker marks. Yeah, it's star vampire.
But it's like okay, it's like must resist urge.
Well, I'd already fallen off the Zeppelin by that point.
Well, that helps when you're dead.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's like, I'm telling you, Tom, it's a star vampire for real.
And it doesn't stop you from shouting out advice to the other players.
No, that didn't. So, anyways, this is been episode 11 from the Dungeon Crawl from Here to Eternity. We hope you kill some orcs, loot some bodies, and crawl some dungeons in tribute of Mr. Gygax. I know there have been a lot of other tributes already, but we couldn't. We had to say, he was one of the greatest cultural figures, I think, in the last 30 years. In a lot of ways, he's going to be an underappreciated figure, but I really think he is an icon of pop culture and gaming, obviously. So we salute you, Mr. Gygax.
Absolutely, man.
Wherever you are, may your dice always roll 20s. I don't know.
That was beautiful, Ross.
I just, anyways, that's all I can say. We'll see you next time.
Stay frosty, people.